All right, let me read some of your comments here. New insights. Jacqueline, we got you covered. Tips on winning members back. Yup, check. Get tips on re-engaging lost members. Strategies for using content creation in winning back members. I'm not sure, Therese. Teresa or Therese? I'm going to go with Therese. I'm not sure. Maybe strategies for using content creation. Feel free to ask questions if that comes up. Tips on how to improve our current win back. Okay, tips, more members, no implementable strategies for small associations. Yep. So a lot of what I'm going to show you today. Some of it, I think, can be mimicked using just about any broadcast system. The reason you might want to use PropFuel in the future is if you believe in this concept of conversational engagement, you want to incorporate it into every aspect of your member experience. So in terms of small associations, Danielle, yes, anyone can implement this approach. The question is, how deep do you want to go with it? I mean, you could drive a station wagon out into the beach, but it's a lot better to drive a Jeep out there. Re-engaging, action plan, member engagement in general, yes. Casey, we're going to get into that too. Strategies, okay, good. My goodness, there's a lot of comments here. At least one idea, Veronica says, at least one idea for improvement that our association could put into action this quarter. We got it. We got it. Ooh, we got it. Now I'm going to tell you what that is. That's such a great segue. Win back. CP, sorry. Oh my gosh, so many awesome comments. How many people are here? I can't tell, but there's a lot of people here. All right, so win back strategies. My name is Dave Will. I'm the co-founder and CEO. I'm sure I know many of you just based on the names, and I think there's a lot of people here that I don't know as well. So my name is Dave Will. I am the co-founder and CEO of PropFuel. PropFuel is a system, a platform, software designed to help you capture member insight and engage members better using that insight. And it's all done in one foul swoop. My philosophy is you cannot have good engagement without insight, and without insight, you just don't know your members. The primary medium right now is email. However, SMS is becoming a much more common tool to use for capturing insight and engaging, of course, a little more sporadically, and there's a lot more rules around SMS. I'm happy to talk about that, and I'll show you one example of that later. The conversational engagement. So that's a term I'd like you to learn. I want you to put that in your noggin and chew on it for a little bit. Conversational engagement is this concept of asking a question, capturing insight, and taking action. And the reason it's called conversational engagement is because it mimics conversations. That's the way you talk to everyone in your world. Anyone, your neighbor, whether it's my neighbor over here, Joe, I'm looking out the window, I can see him, or somebody you see at work after a long weekend. Hey, how was your weekend? What'd you do this weekend? Sparks a conversation that oftentimes leads to capturing some insight, which leads to the next thing you're going to say or the action you're going to say. And that's the idea behind conversational engagement. So with that, this is what I want to say to do one thing this quarter. Somebody said one thing this quarter. Sorry, I'm going to bounce back and forth between the chat every now and so if I pause or seem like I'm stuck on something, it's probably because I'm looking at the chat. So one thing you can do this quarter is join us at this win back workshop. So today is a 45-minute or so session on win backs, right? We're going to talk through, I'm going to show some examples. We're going to talk through some philosophy. But if you really want to get dirty, what we're doing is then there's two different sessions. One for clients, that's on Thursday. So I see a lot of our clients in here. If you are a client and you want to dig in and build a campaign, you haven't done it yet with your client success rep, and you want to get in and get dirty with it and just have some fun building a campaign, whether you use it or not. That's on Thursday of this week. There's a QR code, but I'm also going to plug in a link here. I'm almost done with all the promotion stuff. Let's see. Give me 1 second while I'm going to go get these fancy links and cut and paste these into our chat. There we go. So there's 2 links. If you are a client, let me back into the full screen mode. Okay, so if you are a client this Thursday, 1 o'clock, the link's in the chat or the QR code. If you are not a client and you want to get dirty, what we're doing is we're giving everybody 30 days of access to PropFuel. We're going to help you build a campaign. You're actually going to get it out and win back some lapsed members. And what I've seen the last time we did this, there were stunning results. Just really, really cool to see people come in, change one thing, and see this massive impact. So this would be stage 2. Today is stage 1. If you're interested, join me in stage 2. You guys ready to get to the real content? Here's the real content, and it starts with a dad joke. This is one of my favorites, so I'm going to start with this one. What did the buffalo say when his son left for college? What did the buffalo say when his son left for college? I can see some people mouthing it. Bye, son. That's right. Bye, son. There it is in the chat. So that was another one of your CAE questions. So now we only have one left, right, Riley? One more CAE question. Bye, son. All right. So today we're going to talk about, and that's not true. I'm being silly here. So we're going to talk about the process of lapsing. And again, the first 2 points here, the philosophical stuff, we're going to get through that fairly quickly, although it's kind of the fun stuff because I get to tell stories. But the real reason you're here is you want to see the techniques. So say about half of today's session, 20 minutes or so, we're going to focus on the first 2 points. And then the next 20 minutes, we're going to focus on showing you some examples. All right. Let's start with this. And this is a legitimate question. Tell me if use one of these 3 words: growing, steady, or shrinking. What is your association doing in terms of membership right now? Growing, steady, or shrinking? Because according to the stat here, where this is Marketing General's 2023 Membership Marketing Benchmarking Report, it looks like it's kind of like 50-50. 53% increase. So this is way better than it was just a couple of years ago. A lot of people steady and growing. I don't see many people shrinking. That's really, really good. However, I've never heard anyone, let alone the executive director, I've never heard anyone at an association say, we're pretty good. Like, we're fine. Except for trade associations. Trade associations oftentimes we're pretty good. We have like 98% renewals. What I always like to say there is, okay, if you have 500 trade associations and you're 98% good, that means 10 rather high paying members left. What if we could save 1 or 2 of them? Put in there for me if you're, and I know I'm asking a lot of questions, put in there for me if you're a trade association. And if you are, tell me what association. Just type the name of your association if you're a trade association. I'd be curious to see who we have here today. All right. So the purpose here is to focus on doing a little bit better. So little anecdote. I want you to meet Sam. This is my PT, and that's me. I had hip surgery a couple years ago. And when I tell people I had hip surgery, the reaction is kind of funny. Everybody says, "Oh, my mom had hip surgery." Bear in mind, I'm in the 50s, right? So when your mom, when you're talking to your peers in their 50s, is 80 something. So I'm right in there with all the 80-year-old women with the hip surgery. So and that, by the way, is not actually Sam. But let me tell you about Sam, and I'm going to show you a picture of Sam in a second. So Sam is a physical therapist. And Sam asked what I did for a living. So I told Sam I have a software company. So, oh, what kind of software? And of course, this goes to a point where it's either going very detailed or I'm just going to summarize. So I tried to summarize it. It didn't work. He asked more questions. I said, okay, do you belong to any associations? And he says, not anymore. So there's the crux of the story here. I said, okay, Sam, tell me more. Now he's a physical therapist. I don't want to necessarily pick on the national association that a lot of physical therapists belong to. So I'm going to be a little more delicate than I have been in the past. But Sam said, yeah, I used to get emails from, oh, so of course, Sam said, I used to belong, but I haven't seen my value, of course. So this is where this association says, well, man, we got to show people the value. Somebody called membership. I mean, somebody called marketing, right? So like, we've got to show them, we've got to show all these members that aren't really engaged all the value. There's so much value that we're providing our members. Why don't they see it? And so they send us email. That's Sam, by the way. And I really was at physical therapy, and because I really did have hip surgery, and I'm still working on that. So but this is what APTA sends out on a fairly regular basis, the regular emails with tons of value, like tons of value here. It really is awesome. And so by no means am I cutting on APTA. What I am doing is making a point saying this happens to put a fair amount of work on the member to figure out where the value is for them. And the position that I'd like to encourage you to take here is how can we help our members? How can we reduce the friction in their membership so that we can deliver value to them simply by having a conversation of sorts? And so that's what we're talking about today is how can we reduce friction? And so this is going to come back to, I mean, there's a lot of things we could talk about lapsed members. I'm going to be very, very direct in saying winning back lapsed members is about what to do after they've lapsed. But there's a lot you can do before they lapse. New member onboarding, for example, is a really, really important element of retaining year one members. If you haven't read this book, Amanda Kaiser's Elevating Engagement, if you haven't read this, I strongly recommend it. It's such a good book. She's become a very good friend and an advocate of PropFuel. I'm a huge advocate of her book. And I think it's because it aligns so well with this philosophy. She talks a lot about the member journey and the experience. And when you get a new member, you've got to bring them into the fold really, really quick. All right, so let's talk more specifically about what to do. Well, why people are lapsing and then what to do when they do lapse. Again, tons of stuff we can do to prevent people from lapsing. But let's talk through why they do lapse. Perception of value. I would argue that this was Sam's situation, my physical therapist. This was his situation where he didn't perceive $600 worth of value. I think it was 600 bucks. He didn't perceive $600 of value. Are you kidding me? This is his career, and he couldn't find $600 of value in what APTA was offering. I mean, unbelievable amount of value in that membership, and he couldn't find the value. Another thing is mismatch of offerings. So Sam has certain interests, and APTA has lots of offerings in their value proposition. The trick is matching the value proposition or the member benefit that matches Sam's needs the best, right? So Sam has all these needs, not a lot, and they change, by the way, at any given time of the year or throughout the life cycle of his career. And then APTA in this scenario has tons of cool things that they can do to enhance Sam's career and his experience in the industry. But it's difficult to figure out what those are. Here's one way: pick up the phone and talk to him, right? You can call Sam and say, hey, listen, I noticed your membership is lapsing. You haven't renewed. Tell me, like, what's going on? Oh, Sam might say, well, yeah, I'm not getting a lot of value out of it. And so the person on the other end might say, well, what's going on in your career? What are you working on? I guarantee if that were to happen, they'd probably win Sam back. But you can't possibly do that in an organization that big. You can't pick up the phone unless you got Scott Ozer's team. Scott Ozer is Scott Ozer Associates. That's exactly what Scott and his team do. He's in this webinar if you want to talk to him, but he has a team of people that pick up the phone. But Scott, tell me that's not an immense amount of work when you have 100,000 members, and I don't know how many APTA has actually, but when you have 100,000 or even 10,000 members, first you've got to identify who to reach out to, what to reach out to them about, and when to reach out to them. So it's a daunting project. What I'm proposing, there's better ways to do that on a more scalable methodology so that we can give Scott and his team a more relevant list of people to connect with. So you're not just dialing for dollars. And of course, there's other reasons why people leave an association. Perhaps the most common, I think, is they retire or they leave the industry. All right, but do you know, this is crazy. This is actually the most common reason why people leave. And it's because they didn't even know they lapsed. Isn't that crazy? Now, this is a theory based on data. The data is that we went back and asked a number of our clients that were doing this campaign that would go out and say, did you know your membership lapsed? So this went out to a bunch of like 20 or 30 of our clients. I can't remember the exact number, but a whole bunch of our clients that had this lapsed member campaign. And they went out and said to all the lapsed members, this is after expiration, right? So their membership has lapsed. They're in the grace period, most of them. And or I don't know if they were in the grace period or after. It's probably a collection of the two. But the average across the board was 53% of these people didn't even know their membership lapsed. And that's after sending dozens of emails saying, hey, your membership's going to lapse. I see people nodding. Thank you. Hey, Jay, I see you nodding with a grin on your face. So you've done that, Michael. Yeah. So, um, you know, some good friends of ours in the industry, uh, in fact, I might even, yeah, I'm not going to tell you who they are. I wiped out, and I'm sure you'll never be able to guess which organization this is. I don't mean to pick on APTA and the Orange and White Association I'm referring to here. I really don't mean to pick on them, but they really do provide me with great examples of some things that we should consider changing. So this right here are two of the renewal notices. This organization had an exceptionally high number of people that didn't even know their membership had lapsed. Because look at this, they get this email on this same side. This is my partner, Cameron. So we're all members of PropFuel of ASAE. I love ASAE, but this is the email. I don't know why I whited it out if I'm going to be so obvious about this. But and we're very good friends and they're a client of ours. So this is not to put them down. But this is an example of why we run into this problem of so many people not even knowing the membership lapsed. And also another example of making the member do the work. Look at all these links in here. And then down at the bottom, you could either pay online or print and mail your renewal. So I wonder what the click-through rate is. I wonder what kind of engagement this email gets. I'd be very curious. I do not know the answer to that. Here's another one that went out, I think a different year. It's prettier. I think there's a big button that says renew today. Now, when this goes out, one of a handful of things is going to happen. A, nothing. B, somebody sees it and doesn't do something. Okay, so the first thing is nothing. We didn't even see it. Maybe we went to spam. Second one is they see it, which by the way, open rates, don't even get me started on open rates. Just because the open rate is 53% or whatever, 50, 48, 30%, doesn't mean 30% of people actually saw and read your email. All it means is perhaps the system opened the image and therefore it registered as seen, or they opted out, which automatically tells you that it's been opened. So forget about open rates. But so let's assume that one option is they didn't see it at all or went into spam. Another option is they saw it and they might have actually skimmed it or read it. Another option is they saw it, skimmed it, read it, and clicked on it. And then another option is they saw it, skimmed it, read it, clicked on it, and actually followed through. Now, of all those things, you can measure the clicks, kind of. The only one that really matters, though, is the people that followed through. There's very little insight that comes out of an email like this. You don't know why people would click on it and then not do something. Is it because they're not renewing? Or is it because they just didn't have time to do it right now? Why didn't they click on it? Because they saved it for later? Are they snoozing it? I snooze a lot of emails that I never get back to, by the way. So those are some things I wanna point out. The theme here is that listening is as important as talking, just like in any conversation. When we engage our members over email, we should be listening, or let me rephrase that. When we engage our members in any platform, there needs to be a significant amount of listening. And I would argue maybe in email, you don't need to listen as much as you're going to talk, but you do need to listen some. Let me take a pause here for a second. Response rate is also influenced by member group, like student versus retired. Response rate is also member. Yeah, for sure. It's an interesting thing about students is one of the reasons why students don't respond quite as much. Lots of reasons, but one is because you're still using their edu email address and they graduated, right? Maybe. So how do we update? Oh man, this is a totally different webinar, but how can we build our profile data? How can we listen to members better by asking questions? How about what's your alternate email address? We'd like to keep in touch with you when you graduate. All right. If they don't, they renew right away, they tend to forget. Or yes, and they tend to forget. So you need to remind them again and again and again. Do you think it matters whether it's a calendar year or membership anniversary day as far as forgetting, or it's just they're not invested enough to care what the membership year is anyway? Personally, I don't think it matters. It looks like Bill doesn't think it matters either. All right. We started, I'm just taking a little break because I want to scan through these comments. We've started sending day of expiration notices and have seen an increase in renewals. That is awesome, Jenny. Really, really good. You know what I'd love to do there is send a note saying, hey, today, which you probably what you're doing today, your membership expires and you haven't renewed yet. Why not? Like just jump right to the why not. Let's almost pressure them into like, what the heck? How come you haven't renewed yet? The first option there is going to be, well, because well, I intend to. I promise, I'm gonna do it right now. The other options are like, I'm retiring, but let's get some context. That's a really important thing in connecting and listening to members. Let's get some context around why they're making the decisions they're making. Yeah, that Jacqueline, the profile data really, really easy to capture profile data in a blank um, uh, page and then write it back to the database. We know who's answering these questions. You don't need to ask them to log in. Last one. We give student members a gift, but first they have to fill out a card with their non-university. Oh my God, who loves t-shirts better than college students? Well, I do. I really like t-shirts. I noticed somebody here wearing a PropFuel t-shirt. Turn on your camera if you're out there. I saw that in the beginning. Maybe they left. All right. Well, I'm going to keep an eye out for that. All right. Let's keep going. How about a dad joke? Here's one. Never spell part backwards. It's a trap. Anything? Trap backwards is part. All right. Let's get back to the business here. Ask, capture, act. I already went through this methodology. I'm not going to take any more time with that. You guys ready to get into some examples? So that was the first half. And now we can spend the next 20, 25 minutes going through some examples. And I would really love to dig in and get some discussion going and input as well. Please offer your insight. Oh, we all need a PropFuel t-shirt for that. Excellent. Tell you what, you do get a PropFuel t-shirt as soon as you go live. Laughed louder than I should. Sorry, Paige. Yeah, I tend to get a little silly. I was once told in a job that I should walk faster and smile less because perception is reality. And as you can tell from my personality with the dad jokes and with my other stupid jokes, I've built. That's when I became an entrepreneur. I got fired from that job actually, and that might have been part of the firing process is telling me that. And look at this sign over my shoulder. If you can't see it, a blue square behind me. It says "Walk slow, smile more." It's my new mantra. Not that new. It's about 25 years old, but that's my mantra. My son made that for me. I raised them on that philosophy. All right, enough about me. Let's get into Incozy. So Incozy is a systems engineering um, association. Uh, And they went through this process where they wanted to win back, of course, members that had expired. And so they went through this process. It was a three-part campaign. And I'm going to show you the three parts, but there's a three-part campaign. The intent here is to ask a question so that you can capture more insight about what's going on. There's a whole bunch of things happening here. We're capturing insight. We're reducing friction. We do not want people to snooze this email. We do not want people to put it off for later. We just want them to answer the question and then go to the next email. That's all we really want here. If they renew, awesome. But at least tell us, did you know your membership expired? All right, we're drawing them in. So I don't remember what the response rate here is, and probably it should be sensitive to Nkosi. That's well, I'm sharing a lot of other information. I guess I could have shared that, but again, across the board, on average, is about 53%. So I'm going to come back to this. They ended up getting a whole bunch of member segments to rejoin, including 58 students, because they sparked a conversation this way. So that's one of the questions. I'm sorry, these look a little fuzzy to me on the screen, so I apologize for my poor screenshots, but the point is made here. So they had a three-part series. The first one was, did you know your membership expired? By the way, one thing I want you to know is here, just like a conversation, you're not giving them a dissertation. And you notice and this isn't all the time, but you'll notice a lot of the time there's no links. Sometimes there's a link. When you receive the follow-up for today's webinar, there's going to be a link to the recording because we want to make it as easy as possible for you to get the real intent of the email. But then there's also going to be a question saying, hey, do you want to participate in this Lapsed Member workshop we're putting on? And by the way, if you already filled it out, you do not need to answer that question when we send that out later today or tomorrow morning. So it starts with, this campaign starts with, did you know your membership expired? It waits a period of time, might be a couple days, might be a week, might be 2 weeks. And then it sends out a notice again saying, hey, are you planning to renew your membership? I love this question. In fact, oftentimes we start with that question because did you know your membership expired? It's interesting information. It draws them in, but it's less actionable, and there's a little less we can do with that because regardless how they answer, we still don't know what their intent is. What I really like about this, the second question in their sequence is, are you planning to renew? Because if they are, we bring them to that page. It says, yep, ready to renew. Here we are. You can renew now. Now, many people, and I think the number is about half the people that say, yes, I'm planning to renew, actually do it right there and then. The other half of the people that answer yes don't. So we add them to a drip campaign. We add them to a nurturing campaign. That nurturing campaign can be, and I think these guys use Rhythm AMS, and I think they're also using Rhythm's email. They might have used Real Magnet at some point, but regardless, through the integration in this scenario, if they say yes, but don't actually renew, we add them to a drip campaign. And then when they renew through the automation and the integration, you take them out of those campaigns. The question was, what's the timeline for this three-part series of emails? I do not know what their timeline was, but I can tell you typically this timeline will be about a week or two in between each check-in. I mean, it could go really fast too. It could be every 3 or 4 days. One thing that's really nice about this approach too, at least when you do it in our system, is it sends this out. If the people don't answer, and we'll see like exceptionally high response rates. I mean, across the board with broadcast marketing, you see a 2 or 3% response rate or click-through rate. And in fact, Higher Logic just came out with a benchmarking report, and that's what they reported was like I forget what the number was. I think MailChimp says it's 1.9%. Higher Logic did a slightly different metric of click-through. They said they click to open rate, and their click to open rate was about 3%. When you send a question like this, you're looking at an average of somewhere around 8 to 12%. And I should know that number right off the top of my head. I think it's 12%, but I don't want to make it too high. But it's somewhere between 8 and 12% is the average. What we're seeing on renewal campaigns like this or lapsed member campaigns is somewhere upwards of 17 to 25% is the response rate you get on these kinds of things. Now, if somebody doesn't answer this, it sends them a reminder 2 days later. But if they do answer it, we don't bother them again. So that's a really nice trick to getting people to pay attention more. All right, so if they say they're going to renew, we send them to this note that says renew now, and we might send them an email saying, in case you didn't actually renew, check out this email or check out the link. Here it is in your email to do whenever you're ready. And we also add them to a nurturing campaign that we're going to pull them out of as soon as the AMS, in this case Rhythm, as soon as Rhythm tells us that they have renewed, pull them out. Let's stop bothering them. Yes. Are you integrated in Forms to run these drip campaigns? Absolutely. Yeah. We have integrations with all the marketing automation systems, all the AMSs you can think of, barring a few of the really, really tiny ones. But we're constantly building new integrations. We have something like 50 integrations so that we can talk to marketing systems. Another question I get oftentimes is, so do we do all the emails? No, we are complementary. Every single one of our clients uses a marketing automation system plus PropFuel. It is a niche system. I consider it like a dark chocolate. It is designed to connect with people, to get them to do something, and to get them to learn from them. Insight and engagement. When we want to capture insight or when we want to get them to do something or a balance of the two, that's when you use PropFuel. And there's certain points along the member journey in which that becomes really, really important. What are the subjects for emails like this? Same as the question, how do you prevent being repetitive, or do members feel shamed by the reminds about being expired? Kelly, that's awfully empathetic of you. I don't care, to be honest. I know one way they can get out of that situation, but I'm a little less empathetic, I think. Uh, uh, what's the subject line? Okay, so here's something I've noticed. I'm going to dance around the answer to that. When you're sending a broadcast email, I like to say you're talking at people, right? You're talking to people, you're telling them things. Remember, listening is as important as talking. When you send a broadcast email through, I think you mentioned Informs. Was that you? No, that was the person before you. Regardless, let's use Informs as an example. Informs is such a great name because that's what you're doing. You're informing people of things. When you send an email through Informs, you're telling them something. And oftentimes, the only tools we have to draw their attention in are the graphics, the layout, the look and feel, maybe the content behind the links, and the subject line. I'm not denying the subject line has a lot of value to it. But when the body of the email looks like this, oftentimes the subject line doesn't even matter. Now, of course, sometimes people delete it before they see the body. So it does matter in some cases. That's my very long-winded way of saying I don't know what the subject line was. There's subject line enhancers. I recommend testing it in a lot of different ways to see what works best. Sadly, and I really should, I don't have much insight on what subject lines are best in this scenario. I'm not super creative, so if it were me, I'd probably put in something like question for you, or are you planning to renew? Question mark. Or yeah, something along those lines. So that was your suggestion, just put the question in the subject, maybe a shortened version of that. All right, I'm beating a dead horse here. Now, if they say no to this question, are you planning to renew your membership? If they say no, well, let's get a little more information. Why not? Why aren't you planning on renewing? Like I said earlier, a very common response is this: I've retired or I'm retiring. If in this case, if you click on that, it brings you to this senior discount. And there's a little message here talking to somebody. Again, remember this concept of conversational engagement. If you were to have a conversation with somebody. Imagine this. I usually say this around the onboarding process, but imagine now you're having a conversation or you're in your office and somebody walks in with a sign that says, "My membership lapsed." Like, what would you say to them? You say, "Hey, I'm Dave. I run the show here. Tell me, I noticed your membership lapsed. What's going on? Why didn't you renew?" Right? Like that's to me, that's just the most obvious thing you would say in a conversation. And then they're going to tell you, "Oh, well, I recently retired." And so what are you going to say? Well, congratulations. That's exciting. But did you know there's a lot of retirees that are part of Incozy, and here's why. So I'm going to go back a second because I want you to see we got 57 senior members back through this campaign. How cool is that? Like 57 members came back just because of this automated process that when they said, "No, I'm not retiring," and we said, "Why not?" They said they're retiring, and we said, "Well, that's exciting, but check it all out." All right. And you can nurture them too, by the way. And you can update Rhythm database, retired. Although your membership type would probably show that too. All right. How am I doing here? Is this going too slow? Is there something you want me to dig into more? I have a handful of other examples. Would it make sense to ask, why did you join right after they join? Yes, love that for the new member onboarding campaign. That's one of my favorite questions to start off a relationship with a new member. Hey, welcome. Why did you join? Really good approach to avoid them from lapsing after the first year, which is when they're most likely to lapse after the first year. Is there any data to prove getting that info up front helps with retention? Yeah, retention rates. Um, that's a different webinar, Nancy. If I would love to talk to you more about that, but that's a different webinar. In fact, we should do a webinar on new member onboarding. What do you say, Riley? Can we make that another one in the future, a new member onboarding? Put yes in here if you think that'd be an interesting webinar topic. Um, awesome, good. One big issue is someone retire. Oh, Bill, I missed yours. Sorry, I'm going to go back to that. One big issue is someone retires, leaves, or gets let go. Their email is no longer valid, but there's no forwarding email. Basically, okay, I've got a solution for you, Kelly. Do you have campaigns to get ahead of that? Yep. Ask if when they plan to retire in the future. Okay. So one way you would do it, I think, if you weren't taking this conversational approach, you'd say, "Hey, everybody," or maybe you'd go out to the people that don't have hey, Robson, would you make a note of that new member onboarding webinar? Let's do one of those real soon. All right. Uh, so back to Kelly. Sorry, Kelly, a little ADD here. So um, right now, what you would do is you'd send out a note to the people where you don't have an alternate email address for them, and you'd say, "Hey, we noticed we don't have your alternate email address." Or even worse, you'd send a note to everybody saying, "Hey, update your profile. We want to make sure we have your alternate email address, among other things." And 0.0 people are going to do it. The other approach is through conversational engagement. Hey, this is what we have for your alternate email address. We don't want to lose touch with you when you change jobs. You know who did this? PIRA, Professionals in HR Management, Association. Professionals in HR Association. And they asked this question during the Great Resignation. In fact, they taught me that term a few years ago, the Great Resignation. And they noticed a lot of people were leaving their jobs and they were losing contacts. So they sent out an alternate email address where it said, "This is your email. We'd love to keep in touch with you if you ever leave your job. Would you be willing to give us an alternate email address?" The people that said yes brought them to a form, said, "What is it?" They typed it in and hit submit, and it went right back to their database, which I think in their case is NetForum Enterprise. All right, so that's how you do that, Kelly. Would love to know how this campaign approach has been used for trade associations. We're going to talk about that, Bill. Most of my emails are one-to-one primary contact. Yep, but what happens if that primary contact isn't there anymore, Bill? Or what happens if they're not responding? Did they leave? Is there another person you should be talking to? So that's how we use this approach with with trade associations. But an automated campaign to send related messaging to the full roster would be an interesting test with a slightly different message. Yep, picture. Okay, so this is where Scott's team, Scott Ozer Associates, comes in. If we can identify who answers that, some of them are going to tell you, yes, we got a new primary contact. This is who you're going to reach. Some of them are going to say, and we're going to touch on this in a minute too, but since I'm here, I'm going to keep going. Some are not going to respond, and some are going to say, nope, you got the right person. I just been busy. So the ones that don't respond, great list of people for Scott and his team to reach out to, say, hey, we just want to make sure we have the right person. We noticed we haven't been getting any responses to our email. Is this still your primary contact? Like, what a great targeted list for Scott Ozer Associates to reach out to. I love that. That is, I think earlier I made it sound like you shouldn't be picking up phone calls. You'd be using software instead. That's not the case. AI and technology and automation are here to help us be better humans, to help us figure out when to implement our human skills. You cannot be human to everyone all the time. It is just not possible. And that's why automation and AI exist, so that we can identify when to be human. All right. Where are we here? In Cozy. Share knowledge. Okay, what time we got? 48. I'm gonna go past and cozy. I think we've done enough here. ALA is another example. The legal administrators, they had a phenomenal response to this question. Why haven't you renewed yet? So for them, this is the third question in a series, where the first one is something like, hey, are you planning to renew? The second one is, we noticed you haven't renewed. Did you know your membership expired? I'm making these up right now. But the third one here would be, why haven't you renewed? Now we need some context. And in this scenario, the very first option, I remember discovering that, like, this is a very clear day for me. And a lot of this is experimentation, but I remember discovering that we should be encouraging our clients to add this option to the top. Because if you say, why haven't you renewed yet? Everybody's looking for the option. Like, I just want to, you're right. Good call. I want to renew. Like somebody said earlier, we don't want to shame them. Let's just say, give them the option to get out of this position they're in. But in some cases, you are going to capture more information from them and be able to use that to lure them in. In some cases, this is another opportunity to create a more human engagement. In some places, people tell you that they lost their jobs. Like, I was let go, I was fired, and I'm looking for another position. What a great opportunity to show empathy and be human. What if somebody actually and by the way, they asked an open-ended response saying, what can we do to get you to renew? So they answer this question. The next page says, well, what can we do to get you to renew? I mean, what an amazing opportunity to have a conversation with somebody. And it's okay. You can do that over email or pick up the phone and call them. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to I'm trying to scale the process of insight and engagement while looking for opportunities to really connect with your members at a more personal level. All right, so ALA, I think this is what I just commented on. Oftentimes, as though, not ALA, but a lot of associations notice that people did not renew, and they immediately go to this concept of an exit interview. Well, we're sorry to see you go. Why? What did you find value, and why are you leaving? Blah, blah, blah. When actually the right response is, well, wait a minute. What's going on here? Why are you actually leaving? And try to find a response. Another great opportunity for phone calls. Pick up the phone and connect with the members that are leaving if you want to win many of them back. Here we go. Organizational members. And I already talked through this scenario, but this is the scenario where we can identify. Well, this one in particular talks about just whether they're going to reinstate their membership. But this is also where you're going to have the opportunity to discover whether or not there's a new primary contact. And I'm trying to look for, I'm seeing the time too. I got a little wrapped up in many of your comments. So in this scenario, look how smooth this is. AAP, I remember when AAP first started using this, um, Katie Lerman over there immediately bought into this concept of conversational engagement, as I hope many of you are too. And she went to her team, and the marketing team, their initial reaction was, well, can't we do this in Real Magnet? Because they use Real Magnet. And they actually went so far to call Real Magnet and said, hey, you guys know PropFuel? And they did. And they said, yeah, it's a different system. And so they dug in, they tried it anyway. They said, I think we can do this. And they ended up discovering, well, there's things that are just very, very difficult to do in this process. But so she described, that's just brilliant. I haven't used this actually, but maybe I should. She said, it's like wearing a prom dress out in the winter. Like I think what she's saying is you need the right tools to do the right things. And wearing a prom dress is not going, she must have a daughter going to the prom or something, but that's how she described it to her marketing team. And then she told me about this. And apparently that analogy worked. So this one is fascinating. I don't know if our friends from AAMFT, Marriage and Family Therapy, are here. This is really, really cool. So they sent this to us because in this I want to show you something here. The speed of renewals. So we're not talking about just getting more people to renew. We're talking about getting more people to renew faster. So in 2020 was the last year that they had like a broadcast approach to renewals. In 2021, halfway through the renewal season, they implemented PropFuel. So 2022 was the next time that they actually started using this conversational engagement approach to the renewals. And this looks like this was renewals, not lapsed members. So this was in their entire renewal process. And so if you look at the results from 2020, where on the average for the 3 years before versus the 2022 renewal rates, people responded 20 points faster. 20% increase, actually, the math would say it was a 25% increase. 25, did I get that? Yeah, 25, actually a little more, 25% increase in the speed at which people paid. That many more people paid in the first month of the renewal notice, or before expiry, I should say. And they also got just more members to renew. You know why? Let me go back to that original note of why people don't renew. Yes, there's a misperception of value. There's a mismatch, a misalignment of the value proposition to member needs. But the biggest reason is because people just didn't know their membership expired. There's so much money sitting on the table. All right, SMS is a fairly new approach to communicating with members. We're finding that people are dabbling in it. I think lapsed members are a really, really good use case for SMS. I would be very delicate on how you use SMS, but there's times to use it and times when it works really, really well. And this is a scenario in which you can do that. And we implemented SMS into PropFuel about a year ago. And it's really cool to marry SMS to the email campaigns and to ask questions through SMS and see the responses. Very, very cool approach to if you're feeling progressive and you want to try new things. All right, last one I want to show you is this. We had this medical society, and when they first started, they had 6,000 expired members going back years. This is such a great story. And one thing they told me was like, look, we can build, I think it was Active Campaign. They said we could build 6 emails in 15 minutes in Active Campaign. And, the first email we did in PropFuel took us like 90 minutes, which, by the way, bear in mind, it doesn't take 90 minutes to build a campaign in PropFuel, but their very first one, they're like, this, I'm not sure about this, was kind of their response. So they sent out these emails prior, and they got 0 responses from about dozens of emails going out to all these expired and dormant members. They sent out this campaign, one check-in. I don't even think there's a reminder on this one. They sent in this one check-in. They got 910 responses. I think this has probably gone up since I took these screenshots. One check-in, got 910 of these people to respond. And these are people that were totally unresponsive. And this, if anything, just proves, because this is a pure A/B test. This shows, and we were playing cleanup, by the way. This is like after they sent dozens of emails. So this is just one scenario where you can see, look at the number of people said, yes, I'd like to renew. And by the way, of the 582, I think a little over half actually renewed right there and then. And the other half you put into a nurture campaign to get them to renew. And eventually you pick up the phone and you get them to call. So we've identified who to call, when to call, and what to call them about. And those that didn't, we got 343 people, is that right? To tell us why they're not renewing. And I think, oh, look at that. 48 people actually gave them open-ended feedback, which we call voice of the member. When somebody gives you open-ended feedback, it's voice of the member. All right. This kind of goes into new member onboarding. Aside from all the lapsed member stuff, there's lots of opportunities to win people back by doing a better job in the onboarding process, the value proposition, the understanding, trying to help reduce the friction, figuring out what their added benefits are, figuring out how to communicate with them best, and ideally in the new member onboarding. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up. If you'd like to join us, let me see if I have these links still in my clipboard here. Yep. Okay. So if you'd like to join us, there's 2 links. If you're not a client and if you are a client, and there are the dates. We're probably going to do this again in the future, but this is how you're going to, you can actually get in there and try it again. And if you just don't want to do that, you want to do a demo, you can go to our website too. So I really hope this was valuable. I'm happy to stick around and answer a question or two. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you for emails. How many emails are too many? I'm not going to speak for broadcast emails. I actually have heard sessions at ASAE conferences saying that you're not sending too many emails. The data shows that the more emails gets more engagement. From a PropFuel perspective, I think you need to be delicate on how many PropFuel emails you send because they are more it's dark chocolate, man. Like you're not going to eat a whole bar of dark chocolate. So I'm not. So I think if you're sending out a couple PropFuel emails to each member per month, depending on the segment and the stage they're at in their life cycle, that's a good time. Bye, Brittany. MNLA. Thank you so much. Already signed. Oh, good. We'll see MNLA in the win back. Good. I hope to see a lot of you in there. Do your services integrate well with Member Zone? The word well, I'm not going to answer because I don't know much about that integration, but yes, we have an integration to Member Zone. Like I said, there's like 50 of them. And the integrations these days are way better than they used to be. They don't take months to integrate. And this is a light integration too. We take data out of Member Zone and we send data back to Member Zone.